Welcome to the Will and Dave Show, where we talk about hard things, whether it's comfortable or not. We think those conversations are necessary and important. We think that having different opinions is crucial to a healthy discourse. So saddle up, enjoy the fireside chat.
William.
David?
Hold on a second. I'm posting the link in Facebook because I
Oh
can.
yeah, I'll
Because
make sure I share the link in Facebook. I'm gonna, honestly, I haven't used Facebook apart from using it to schedule for theater. I haven't used it in almost 6 months now, and I kind of like that.
you aren't missing anything.
No, I'm not. But I use it to share the podcast. I log into it, share the podcast, and log out of it.
Well,
It's kind of relaxing.
there, it's posted on Facebook. How was your
Gracias,
week?
senor. My week was pretty good, actually. Honestly, all things considered.
Did you work lots?
Um, yeah, we worked lots. We worked hard. Then we had a little mini barbecue. One of the guys at work wanted to have a little barbecue, so we had a little barbecue at work,
Who
which
had
was
the
great.
barbecue? Was it Kyle? Was it his
No, no,
brainwave?
it was Brad. It was
Oh
Brad.
my gosh!
It's the same barbecue that Mallory would use of Brad's. He would usually borrow Brad's little propane barbecue.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, Brad had a little barbecue, and so I brought some veggies for the burgers, and Kyle brought some booze. We all
Some
had our drinks
booze.
and our burgers. He just brought some Capmo to mix with root beer. Instead of beers, we had Capmo and root beer.
So tell me that you didn't have your beers and then hop in your car and drive home.
No, I will usually have one beer at work with the guys on a Friday. I have one drink. That's my rule. I have one drink, and then I'll drive home, which usually a beer or a cider. And
So
then,
by
but I didn't
definition,
have anything.
you drank and drove.
No, I'm well underneath the legal limit
So by
based on my.
definition, you drank and drove.
I mean, if I have a drink of water before driving, I by definition drank and drove.
No, no. If you have a drink of
But yes,
alcohol and you drive, it's called
yes,
drinking and driving.
but responsibly. Give me a second. I gotta turn my light down a little bit.
I'm gonna have my cup of tea while I think about that.
You enjoying your little air of superiority? Not
No,
too dark.
it's not superiority. It's just guys, do not drink and drive.
That's right. Don't.
Just don't do it at all.
Yeah, you didn't hear me say anything. But what I did do is I didn't drink this Friday, as I was trying to say. I
Uh,
didn't have any alcohol at work um, because I went home and we drank for my roommate's birthday.
gotcha.
We played video games and got drunk with a bunch of friends. And that was a blast because I made a new cocktail and it was quite the time.
Well, you see, and that I have no problem with
It's
because you
called the
didn't drive.
penicillin. It's really good.
I don't want to hear about it. I'm
It's
not much of
unfortunate.
a drinking guy, you know that.
Anywho,
So, before we go further, we should thank our sponsors because we have
okay.
sponsors for the show. Let's get that out of the way, the shilling out of the way. The first one I will holler about because that's what I do is
Mm-hmm.
Northern Truss.
Mm-hmm.
I had to pick who am I going to pick this week. Northern Truss is owned by Mallory Smith, who may or may not be related to some of us, and he makes roof trusses and floor systems
Mm-hmm.
up in the Fort St. John area. So if you are looking for floor systems or if you're looking for roof trusses, why don't you phone the gang at Northern Truss? And you can reach them at, have you learned the phone number yet?
Nope.
250-787-3033. One of these days, you're going to remember that phone number.
Maybe. We are also supported by Stitched by Susan and her associated media empire on the rise. Stitched by Susan is we'll start with the website. It is a website, but it is also an Instagram account. It is a podcast, Measure Twice, Cut Once podcast. If you have any interest, both current or burgeoning interest in quilting and the wonderful, wonderful world of fabric stitching, sewing, and all that jazz, we cannot recommend Stitched by Susan enough. And even if you aren't into quilting,
Mostly
her podcast,
quilting.
Measure Twice, yeah, mostly quilting, but Measure Twice, Cut Once is fantastic, relaxing ASMR, even if you aren't into quilting. It is just the most wonderful, easy listening podcast you could ever want.
Here's a thought.
Hmm.
For one of our episodes, we should just have her playing in the background. I could stick it on a green screen, just have her quilting show in the background. Think how mellow we would be the whole show. Anyways, if you want to support the show, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave Show and for the low price of a cup of coffee, you can send us money. But there you go.
Shilling out of the way. Now,
Yeah,
before we
moving
get into
on.
the meat and potatoes,
Yeah.
happy Father's Day.
Oh, thank you.
I don't like doing these things over phone, but I can't do them in person. So this is like the next best thing.
Is do it
doing
live
in
on
public
YouTube.
live on YouTube. Happy Father's Day, Dave. For
Well,
those of you who don't know, because maybe you don't know Dave personally and you're just tuning in, he's a pretty rad dad.
rad dad. I've never been called that before.
He's a pretty rad dad, you know?
I
He
have
taught
never
me
been called
how
that
to fix
before.
things and how to hold the flashlight while you fix things, which is a very useful skill I've learned.
And that I did teach you.
Yeah, like I'm not even joking. The ability to help somebody with fixing something, but just shut the heck up and help and not talk their ear off with ideas of your own. That is a useful skill that I employ now.
I'm going to be called the rad dad. I like that.
Yeah, you're a rad dad.
That's my new nickname. I think I might make that my moniker on
Yeah,
something.
everything that's wrong with me is my own fault. You did the best you could with what you had.
I was actually on my notifications on Facebook this morning. I get my memories and it comes up and you were complaining. You were saying how much you loved your dad, that the only thing you didn't like was your receding hairline, and you blamed me for that.
I mean, I do.
I'm like,
That picture was on a cruise, wasn't it?
uh,
I want to say that was on one of the cruises.
let me look. I think I can find it. I think I might have my
'Cause
memories
you
still
and me
somewhere.
did the father-son dinner. I want to say it was on a cruise. It was on a vacation of some sort, because that picture wasn't anywhere around here.
I'm just going to look it up because,
And I want to
So
make
that
a
one
note
does not have a
while you're
photo.
looking that up. In the exact
Go
same
ahead.
vein as what we said or what I said during Mother's Day, if you're a single parent, a single mother, this day is for you too. Even if you don't, I mean, if you're a child who has to act as the man of the house because you don't have a father around there, this day is also for you. This day is for everyone, not just who is biologically a father, but is carrying out the role as such. This is a day to celebrate you, all of you, every last one of you. Just wanted to make
This
sure to throw that
photo
out.
was, I don't think it was on a cruise, but it might have been.
Going by like the time it was taken, would have been around cruise time.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
somewhere
know.
around here. No, it's not a cruise ship. Look at the window. That's not a cruise ship.
I
But
know
that is a fancy restaurant.
it is, and I can't think of where that was, but
I don't know. I'm pretty sure you still own that shirt, though.
no, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure
Anywho.
where that is.
Where do we want to start
trying to
today?
think.
Do we want to start with general politics, or do we want to start with
Well, there are
continuing
so
the
many
conversation from last week?
things that have happened since we had a real episode of the show.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It's kind of like the politics grab bag tonight.
Yeah, so I do want to hit on last week's, although I want to hold off on that a little bit.
Okay.
We promised we would hit on the guns in Canada thing.
Mm-hmm.
As in your world, that's really big news.
It is pretty, kind of, yeah.
There's a run on handguns in Canada now because there is a. Well, you probably know more about it. Why don't you explain the new law?
I actually don't know a lot about it because I haven't heard a ton about it, which is I hear a lot of conservative people terrified they're going to take away our guns, and I hear a lot of nothing out of progressives because they don't think that it's, at least the progressives that I hang out with and run around, they don't think it's a meaningful change. They think it's kind of it's a vapid law. I mean, me
It's a what
personally,
law?
I think it's vapid.
The vapid?
Yeah, it's going to be largely useless. Partially because I think that similarly to how Canada supposedly banned some assault style weapons a few years back, to my knowledge, they haven't really enforced it in the slightest because it's kind of unenforceable. The amount of money and time and effort that would be required to actually enforce it it's mostly meant as a way to discourage people from buying them rather than an actual enforceable law. And I'm assuming this is going to be something of the same, something that the Liberal Party can say, hey, look, we did something about gun control, but didn't really do anything.
Well, I know one industry who's really happy about it.
I'm sure the firearms or the ammunition industry is.
Well, the gun manufacturers industry is, because they are selling a crazy amount of handguns in Canada right now.
Yeah.
As I guess it
Which
takes
is
effect the end of the year or something, or June. I can't remember when
genius.
it is.
Your country is outlawing something or making it, I don't know about outlawing, but making it illegal to purchase them. So you're just going to buy them all now so that you have a potentially contraband item in your possession. Genius.
Well, it's
But yeah, my personal take on it is that I think that it's going to do nothing. I think that it will not change the culture around mass shootings. I mean, Canada doesn't have as many of them, although still more than it should. I don't think that any kind of ban on handguns is going to make any kind of difference.
I'm reading an article in the New York Times about the gun thing in Canada, and they're comparing the illegalization or the removing of legalization of handguns, and they are making it legal to have small amounts of opioids. And one of the points of the article is, in Canada, who kills more people, opioids or guns?
Probably opioids.
Yep. And we're going to decriminalize that. We're going to criminalize guns. Yes.
Yes. Decriminalize, yes, not legalize for opioids. There's a difference.
Right. So we will decriminalize that, and we will
small doses, yes.
We will criminalize.
I mean, on the surface, that sounds insane.
It does sound insane. It sounds like something a government would do.
But when you look into the decriminalization of small amounts of opioids, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that is the right path towards helping people get out of cycles of addiction to opioids.
Yeah,
is making it so they don't have to be scared to come into treatment centers or hospitals because they might have some on them. We're making it more accessible.
And taking guns away from all the lawful gun owners is going to stop the unlawful gun owners from getting any.
The gun law thing, I think, is objectively, not objectively. Yeah, no, I think, me subjectively, but I think it is objectively a waste of breath and paper and time and effort and spending.
It's your fearless leader up there.
Yeah, he's doing more of the same. It'll look great when it comes time for elections. He can point to it and say, look what we did.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
May hurt him more.
Hopefully it does. I don't want them wasting more money.
And moving on from that one, we have the Roe v. Wade nonsense here in the U.S. that's been going on, and the verdict is due to be handed down any day this week, I think. We
were expecting it earlier this week, but it ended up not
earlier last week,
Then we have January 6th hearings. Those have been a time.
Oh, that was one thing that we should have a conversation about, a whole show on that nonsense. Because
there's a lot coming to light with those hearings.
Oh yes, there's a lot coming to light. I'm sure, depending on what side of the argument you're on. And then,
I mean, I'm just talking about footage. Like the amount of footage that's been released has been incredible. Stuff that we didn't know about before.
And then yesterday there was a television crew from the Colbert Show, Late Night with Colbert, who was in the White House or in the Capitol building, and they were filming a comedy special. And they stayed in after their permit expires. They were running around the building, and they're filming a bunch of sections of the show or the special. And they were all arrested for exceeding the limits of their permit. So, of course, all the right-wing nutcases are calling it the insurrection of June 19th.
Oh, my God. On one hand, that's laughable and it's kind of amusing. On the other hand, I don't want them making light of January 16th. I feel a little bit uneasy about that.
Well, I don't know what the special was about, so it doesn't really matter. All the points at to me is people will be stupid. No matter what they do, they're going to be dumb. And
I just don't like the idea of even jokingly equivocating a television crew running past their permit to an insurrection at the Capitol building.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that that kind of line of thought minimalizes what actually happened on January 16th. So
there you go.
Iffy about it.
I'm still not that upset about January 6th.
I'm still pretty upset about it. Arguably more upset the longer past the date. Because there hasn't been meaningful repercussion for it.
For who?
At the upper end.
For who?
People who did it are getting arrested all over the place. The politicians that egged it on. they're still there. I mean, so few of them have faced any
Oh,
kind of
for heaven's
repercussion
sakes.
outside of maybe torpedoing their career to a certain extent. But
No.
whatever torpedoing they're getting in
Yeah,
the middle of the political field, they're making up for on the far right of the field.
that's not going to happen.
I know that's the part that bugs me, is that it's not going to happen.
I've been following the hearings in Canada for Tamara Leach or Leash or Lick
I
or
actually
whatever her
haven't
name
been
is.
following those.
You should have been, because it's your freaking country.
I'm gonna have to catch up on that. 'Cause
And
I haven't.
so she and the other guy, I forget his name, Bill. I forget. They were charged with mischief and they were held without bail.
Mm-hmm.
He's still being held without bail, and she was held without forever.
Yeah.
They released her on a whole bunch of conditions, and she applied to be able to have a few of them relinquished, and they were, and she's able to travel now. And she went to Ontario, and she accepted an award, and I'm just going to look it up so I quote this right. Tamara Leash. A Freedom Award, which was just looking up. The George Jonas Freedom Award. And I've been seeing a few of the rallies at these events that she is going to, and I think that your fearless leader may be in for a shock at the next election if he calls one.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I think
I think he's grasping at straws to think that he has a shot.
The treatment of Lish and this other lady, or the other guy that I can't remember his name, and he is a bit of a nutcase, but
yeah, him I feel not a lot of bad feelings about what happened to him. Not great still,
but who gets held without bail anymore?
Exactly.
You can kill somebody and get bail, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and in Tamara Leach's case,
yeah,
she didn't do anything wrong. I didn't see anything.
Neither one of them are charged with anything more than mischief, and they don't get bail.
Yeah,
like it's asinine. And I think that you guys in Canada, have to hold this guy accountable for what he's done.
I was going to say, I wouldn't call it asinine. I would call it at best a gross miscarriage of justice. At worst, a gross infringement on their freedoms.
Well, the freezing of bank accounts, I can only hope that as a group of Canadians, you guys will hold him accountable, because man, oh man, it's crazy world.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on to last week's show.
Yes, last week's show.
So I got off the show last week and I was visibly upset.
Yeah.
Not with you, obviously, because I don't get mad at you. But I was mad at... No, I wasn't mad.
At me?
I don't get mad at you on the show.
Oh, okay.
And honestly, I wasn't mad. I was struggling with the idea of the Satanic Temple, and really struggling with it. And not from the standpoint that it's horrible, it's wrong, it's anything other than what it is. It's the fact that the whole premise of the Satanic Temple, the whole premise of it is in exact opposition of this show.
I'll ask you to explain before I critique
I
that
will.
statement.
So I never got into it on the show a whole lot because I wanted to listen and more than. And after the show, actually, I was on the phone with your sister, and she said, "Oh, you need to be." She said, "You need to be careful, Dad, in the questions that you ask, because they're leading questions." And I didn't feel that I was, except I guess, I don't always feel that I'm. But afterwards, I came off, and I don't know how to word this, but the whole foundation of our show is you're left, I'm right, you're young, I'm old, I'm conservative, and you're liberal. And in the middle, there's all kinds of common ground, and we look for that common ground.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't look at the fact that you're a liberal or I'm a conservative or I'm old and you're young. And that's never the foundation, is looking at the differences and celebrating the differences. It's looking for common ground.
Right.
And that's what we do. And we actively encourage everybody to look for common ground and to go for coffee with somebody who you don't agree with and look for common ground.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea, the whole existence of the Satanic Temple is to look at Christianity and they say, you're wrong. And the things that you do are wrong. The foundation of what you do is wrong. So here's what we're going to do about it. We, as a group of people, are going to go to the exact opposite, and we're going to look for iconography that you despise. And we're going to use that as our standard in order to hold a mirror up, and these are his words, hold a mirror up at Christianity and say, here you go.
Yes. That
they're
last
taking-
sentence you're correct on.
So
The rest of it I take on.
So they're looking at a group of people, and instead of saying, hey, we want to look for common ground, what they're saying is, no, we're not going to look for common ground. We're going to go to the exact opposite extreme and hold a mirror up.
See, there's a term, and I don't know what it is. There's a logical term, like a logical, a term for what you're doing.
Which is?
But if effectively you're painting a picture of the Satanic Temple that definitely fits how you feel about the Satanic Temple, but I don't think is a true representation of their purpose. I don't think that they use satanic imagery because Christians hate it. I think they use it because it makes Christians uncomfortable.
Well, of course.
And I think they want Christians to feel uncomfortable. I think that is
so how
an
do they do
intentional
that?
Choice
So how do they do
using that iconography?
Which is what?
Satanic in nature.
Which is the exact opposite of what Christians hold dear.
Okay, fine.
It is. It is.
But
it's
who
going
gives
to
a crap?
Because it goes against everything in this show. It's not looking for common ground.
No, but there is common ground. And every instance of talking about the Satanic Temple that we've had involves a lot of common ground. Like the video that we saw of that speech was him talking about how there should be common ground because America was founded as a secular government and we've drifted too far in one direction and we have to bring it back to being more egalitarian.
So to make their point, and hi, Marie, by the way, I'm just going to throw this up as my sister's watching, and I always appreciate when my sister's watching. Is it takes a lot for her to come on this show sometimes and watch. So I appreciate you watching, Marie. If all they did was hold a mirror up, I wouldn't have nearly as much a problem. But that's not what they do.
You're upset about the coat of paint that's on it.
Yes, I am.
But the actual functionality of the Satanic Temple is doing good things and finding common ground if you can just look past the coat of paint. And as we talked about in the last episode, the coat of paint functions both as a way to make Christians feel uncomfortable, as I think that's what they want, is they want to
if that is the
be
case,
somewhat unsettling.
If that is the case, Will, and I'm going to go a little bit extreme, so give me a little bit of leeway here. If that's the case...
As long as you're owning up to it, that's fine.
If that's the case, why don't we look at the people who stormed the Capitol on the 6th of January and said, hey, they're just holding the mirror up to the Democrats, ignore what they did, ignore what they stand for, ignore all this stuff. Here, it's just holding it. You have to look. And that's the whole point of this show.
Comparison.
This is the whole point of the show.
That's not even apples to tomatoes comparison.
Here's what we're looking for. Here's the whole foundation of this show. It's not about the Republicans or the Democrats. It's not about the old and the young. It isn't a, as those are the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
If we looked at everything and said, hey, I'm old, so I'm just going to hold a mirror up as I think you're wrong, Will.
Mm-hmm.
You'd look at me and say, well, this is a waste of time. If all I did every time we talked about something was I held a mirror up and I said, you're wrong.
You're right. You're right.
It would be a waste of time. And when I look at the Satanic Temple, and this is what bothers me.
Of holding a mirror up.
And this is what bothers me about the Satanic Temple, is their whole existence is saying, I'm going to grab the thing that you hate the most,
mm-hmm.
and that's my mirror that I'm going to hold it up.
But that's
and you want to
excuse
that
to a certain extent.
Why?
I don't think that everything should be like that. Not everyone should be like the Satanic Temple. Not everyone should be like Van Jones, who functions in...
But Van Jones is nowhere near the Satanic Temple.
No. Hear me out. I know, that's the point. Van Jones is the opposite end of the spectrum, where Van Jones will meet and find middle ground and work with anyone as long as it's towards a common goal. That doesn't always work, though, and in the same sense that the Satanic Temple doesn't always work, but we need both. And when you talk about our show only existing for common ground, you're right. That is the primary focus of the show. But multiple times in the show, we've talked about the fact that we... like I as a progressive and you as a conservative want people on the opposing viewpoint. We want people who disagree with us, because having that will end up with a more functional society, having people who disagree so that they can disagree and get to the root of things. Because if everyone thought like me, we would have problems. If everyone thought like you, we would have problems. We have to have opposition. And the Satanic Temple is filling the position of being that mirror. And yes, it is a little bit on the extreme side, but that's okay. It's supposed to be.
Why?
And I'm okay with them existing like that. I don't want everyone to be like the Satanic Temple, but I do like the fact that the Satanic Temple exists.
You and I regularly are the ones who take pot shots at the extremes, at the extreme right and the extreme left.
Yeah.
We look at Trump and we go, what in God's name is he thinking?
Yeah, we look at
Bernie Sanders or Trudeau and we think, what in God's name is thinking? And we don't say, hey, we need a Trump. Hey, we need a Trudeau. We look at them and say, no, we don't need these things because you're wacko.
But the Satanic Temple isn't that.
But the
nothing that they have done is
absolutely
wacko.
Is.
The what?
It absolutely is. It took the extreme opposite of what it didn't like.
Only to you.
No. It took the extreme opposite of what it did not like. It said, I don't like Christianity and what it stands for. Yes.
No, back that up.
What?
We talked about this with Chase. It is not that they exist in opposition to Christianity. It is that they exist in opposition of preferential treatment by a government.
So what they do,
they want people to practice whatever religion they want to practice.
So what they do is they become the exact opposite.
Because it's a good marketing strategy.
So was Trump. And neither of us approve of Trump.
The difference is Trump does awful things. The Satanic Temple's not doing awful things.
William.
They're starting after-school educational programs.
You and I, we look for common ground.
Yes.
There are lots of things that we don't agree on.
Yes.
And we look for common ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't look at you and say, because you're progressive, that I'm going to hold my mirror up to you and say, here's where you're wrong, Will. We look for common ground.
Yeah.
You cannot say that when you become the iconography, and I love that word, of the exact opposite of what you are railing against.
Mm-hmm. They're not railing against. They exist in opposition to.
Yes.
But you're making it sound like a fanatical thing. They exist in opposition
to.
And they become exclusively in opposition to Christianity. Christianity it just happens to be the primary group that they fight against in the United States.
Sure, I'll take that.
Because they are the one that has the most
Okay.
preferential treatment given to them.
So
in the
what they
States.
grabbed was the extreme opposite and said,
Yeah.
here's our iconography. Here's our picture frame that we're going to frame this with. The exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
You and I, we spent a lot of times on some of the crazy things on the religious right.
Mm-hmm.
And we look at it, we say, what in God's name are they
Mm-hmm.
thinking over here when they do some stupid stuff?
Mm-hmm.
But it's somehow okay when these guys who took the exact opposite iconography look at it and say, hey, you're wrong. And we're saying, well, that's good. But it's not good.
They're not.
Because the point of what they do is the extreme opposite. It's
not the
it's
opposite.
the Bernie
though.
Sanders to the Trump.
It is not, though. It's not, though.
Hey, don't yell because it comes through like a 90 decibels. So don't yell.
That is what you perceive it as.
William.
Based on the actions that we have looked at and that I have looked at and the people that I talk to have looked at, like every action that we have looked at.
It's the iconography. It's what it is.
So what? Grow up.
Well,
that is the most snowflakey response. The pictures are bad, so I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater because the pictures aren't to my liking.
We talk about this with Trudeau. And we talk about it with Trump. And we look at it and say,
Those are not fair comparisons.
They are absolutely fair
No,
comparisons.
they're not.
Because there's a lot of people who like what each one of them is doing.
Yeah.
And we look at it and we say, there may be a few things of what you do is right, but the whole packaging is so wrong.
No, you have it backwards.
How is that?
Everything they do is bad because you don't like the iconography.
No, I'm not saying what they're doing is bad. I'm not saying what they're doing is bad.
You're comparing them to people who do objectively awful things on a regular basis.
No, I'm saying that their packaging hurts what they're doing because they're framing themselves as the extreme. They are framing. I don't care what they do. I don't care if all they do is sit around in circles and eat lollipops. But they're framing.
Extreme.
No,
you are framing them.
They have framed themselves as a satanic temple. I did not do that. They did that.
Did you not listen to what Chase said?
Yes.
The purpose behind choosing Satan as a mascot wasn't just because it exists as the antithesis to Christian iconography, but because of what Satan as a literal character, what Lucifer as not literal,
I know what you mean.
A literary character exists. It is not just to be in opposition to. There are other reasons they've chosen it. But yes, existing as a mirror to Christianity is part of it.
You think?
It's only extreme to one group of people. And you're throwing out everything that they have to say because of that and that alone. That is like me looking at all of the Christian iconography of a dude nailed to two wooden planks and saying, holy crap, that is violent and disgusting. You guys are out to lunch. I'm not going to listen to anything that you have to say. Because your primary piece of iconography is a dude sacrificed on a freaking piece of wood and hung out publicly to die. Actually, 3 people. I should be fair to the other 2 guys that had it happen to them. You're only upset because it goes against your religious value. And you're throwing everything else they have to say out
because I don't care what they do.
That's the problem.
No,
you
it's
should
not.
care what they do.
Why?
You should care because they're doing good things. They're doing objectively
So why do they have to
things.
cloak themselves in an extreme?
It's not a cloak. It's a marketing strategy. They're getting people talking about them. They're getting eyeballs on. It's genius. It's a brilliant marketing strategy.
So if that's the case, if this is how we're going to judge things, then we should look at orange hair dude and say he's a genius.
Who? Why?
Because it was marketing strategy. It worked.
No, but the things that he did were crap. He was generally an absolute piece of
so
shit
we're
in
going
office.
we're going to agree on a lot that he did, but there's a whole pile of people who agree with what he did. A lot.
Yeah.
There's about half of the voters in the U.S. who agree with what he did. So for you to look at that and say, but what he did was crap,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of people who disagree with you.
Okay.
But he's the extreme, and we look at the extreme. I look at the extreme, and I say, you could have done so much better. And you look at this extreme, and the reason that you think that what they do is good is because you agree with what they do. And you're ignoring the fact that they're extreme.
No, they have extreme iconography. To answer Murray's question, though,
Yeah,
they are two
I'm gonna
totally
put a
different
link in.
organizations. Yeah,
I'm going to put the
we
link
have
in the
some
chat.
links. There's a ton of other resources in the doobly doo on our previous week's episode as well. That Chase Scoop, who is speaking on their behalf, or not officially on their behalf, but speaking of them to us.
For me,
he gave lots of links.
For me, my angst is not with the Church of Satan.
You mean the Satanic Temple?
The Satanic Temple, yes. I don't care what they do, except I view them exactly how I view Trump. I view them exactly how I view your fearless leader up in Canada. There's a pile of people say that what he's doing is great, and we look at it and we say, but you're an idiot. As you are framing everything in this overbearing manner. And again, I look at Trump and I look at Bernie Sanders and I look at all the people who are on these extreme ends. The whole point of our show is look for common ground.
And it's there. The common ground exists. You're not looking for it. You're stopping at the surface level, at the imagery, and that's where you're stopping. You're not looking for the common ground because it exists.
And
it exists all over the place.
I'm pointing at you more than at the Church of Satan. Is that I don't have an issue with after school lunches or whatever the heck these guys are doing. I really don't. I don't care. But to look at them and excuse the iconography, and this is what you're looking and saying, but they do good things, so ignore that. And I'm saying, well, if that's the case, look at Trump and ignore what Trump was. No, because he did good things too. Except he was an idiot.
I categorically reject the comparing of their usage of satanic imagery as overly aggressive to comparing them to a Trump or a Trudeau. Those are not
they
fair
are picking
those aren't even remotely
the exact opposite.
No,
on purpose. On purpose.
You're latching on to one of the reasons that they chose that iconography and ignoring all of the literary reasons, the ideological reasons that they might pick that. You're latching on to one and one only, and you're ascribing all the meaning to that piece of the equation. It is a piece of the equation, absolutely, but it is not the only piece. You are ascribing all the meaning to it, not them. You can't say that that's why they do it, or that's why they mean it, or that's why they picked it. You say you perceive it as that's why they picked it, that's why they do it, and that's okay. But everything that I have read, everything that I have seen, the people that I've talked to that are involved within it, that is only a small piece of the puzzle. It is not the whole thing, and I think that is a grossly unfair comparison.
And there are lots of people who voted for Trudeau that I really enjoy being with.
And most of them don't like him.
I know that.
There
are lots of people who voted for Trump that I don't agree with.
Yeah.
And there are lots who I do agree with. But I don't agree with the icon at either end. Okay. There are lots of people in the church that I don't agree with. There are lots of folks that I really do agree with. And there are lots of religions that I don't agree with.
And yet you voted for one of those extremes.
Yes,
so
I did.
Why can't you get behind the good things Satanic Temple does and look past the iconography if it's not to your taste? If it's not to your taste, fine. You have to understand that for a whole bunch of other people, as you say, it is directly to their taste because they love things that crap on the church because they have beef with the church. They have a history with the church, and they like the fact that something craps all over that. You have to you're using that comparison, and it goes both ways. I don't subscribe to that way of looking at it, but to your example, you have to understand that there is half the country that probably absolutely hates Christendom and is happy that there's an organization that to your viewing spits in the face of that.
And I would say to them, as I do to the people who rally around either name your extreme viewpoint.
See, I
don't care what it is because it is an extreme viewpoint. It's extreme iconography. It's an extreme. It's going
Sure.
to the exact opposite of what they don't like. And they're holding it up as a mirror, and he used that example. When you are, and all this all began with the guy in Idaho gets up there and says, I pray to Satan, I bow to Satan, and all that stuff. He's doing it on purpose, has an extreme answer.
I don't think it's an extreme answer. I think it's an absurdist answer. I think those are two very different things. We've talked once or twice about absurdism as a form of humor or a form of criticism, and I think that this is a prime example of absurdism. By taking something and flipping it on its head and turning it up just a little bit more, it makes you realize how silly the original thing can look sometimes.
So,
And by him taking that prayer, and it sounds so inane and so strange and foreign and unpalatable to people who are Christian, you have to understand that to people who aren't Christian, and in some senses people who oppose many of the Christian values that are trying to be pushed into our government, that's how your prayers sound to some of us. It is just as distasteful. He is holding a mirror to it to make a point, and he makes it well. He makes it very well.
we get angry at the guys who are anti-abortion who drape themselves in baby parts. And I get mad at them as they go to these extreme views. If you read the tenets of the Church of Satan, or the Satanic Temple, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
They're great.
Mm-hmm.
They're wonderful tenets.
Mm-hmm.
There is no need to go all the way on the other end and say, hey, we are going to adopt the iconography of the exact opposite of the church as these are tenets. And what we're going to do is we're going to name ourselves after a mythical character that we don't even agree, we don't even believe in, and we don't believe exist.
Good choice of word. Mythical. That's a great choice of word. I like that.
And we look at this and we say, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have our 7 tenets. And there's nothing wrong with any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them would I read and disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them. But there's no need for the extreme iconography or the extreme framing of it. All you have to say is these are our 7 tenets. And we don't believe in God. I don't care if you don't believe in God. You don't have to pick extremes in any argument if you want to meet in the middle. And this is where I have a beef, is they don't want to meet in the middle.
They do want to meet in the middle.
Then why would they pick extreme iconography?
We've already talked about this multiple times for a variety of reasons. One being marketing, because it gets them noticed, because it gets them on TV shows like Tucker Carlson. It gets them out there. It gets them noticed. If they were just another organization that just did these things but didn't have that iconography, they wouldn't be as popular as they are. They wouldn't. And they wouldn't have the money or the reach or the impact that they do now. Also, again, you are discounting the multiple literary and ideological reasons that they might actually allude to Lucifer and Satan as iconography that are not in opposition to Christianity. They are in tandem with some of the mythological and literary depictions of Satan that exist both within Christianity and without of it. There are and outside of it. There are multiple reasons for them choosing it, and one of them is certainly to be a mirror.
Yeah.
To hold up to Christianity, and it's working. That's you ask why they have to do it, and I ask why wouldn't they do it? It's working. It's working for them. They're doing fantastic, and I think it is largely in part to genius branding that is obviously offensive to some people. But how many times have we talked about the fact that it's your ability to choose whether something offends you or not?
Yes, it absolutely is.
And so
but it does not excuse those whose whole point of exist, or not whole point, I want to say it that way, who do things with the purpose of offense.
I don't think the purpose is offense. I think that's a byproduct.
William, when you
know,
pick
maybe it
as
is,
your
even if it is.
iconography
Okay.
to be the opposite of Christianity, who they hold a mirror to, it's to offend.
So
They're
say
not
that it
doing
is.
it.
That's
Okay.
okay.
Oh,
That's not a particularly egregious offense.
oh my gosh.
And it's only offensive if you choose that it's offensive. And again, it's not even necessarily all that offensive. This isn't like the kind of offensive that says that, trans people don't exist, or discounting anyone's existence. If anything, it almost gives credence to the fact that your beliefs exist because they have iconography that sits in opposition to it. This is a different kind of offense. This is like an icky or I don't like that kind of offense. This isn't offending your state of being.
I don't care. I'm not offended. It's the fact that they choose to try to offend that bothers me. That they will have a logo that they know offends a vast majority of the population. That they choose to do that.
Why would a comedian swear in their set or tell an edgy joke? Because it shares well. I mean, again, this is apropos of all the other reasons that they might have used satanic or Luciferian iconography in their branding. But just on
his
the
argument
note of,
his argument is that it stands for rebellion.
Part of it, yes.
If that's the case, it could be the Church of James Dean, for crying out loud, who was the ultimate rebel.
Could be, but that wouldn't sell as well.
Exactly. Because we know what social media does to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It looks for differences and it exaggerates them.
Mm-hmm.
It looks for things where we're different, and it gives you more of the things as it gives you hits of dopamine. We know that. We hate that about social media. Anybody who has half a brain looks at social media, and we know they're doing it to us, and we go along for the ride anyways, and that's another whole argument. But we know they do it. They look for things, and it's brilliant on their part because it works.
Mm-hmm.
And we're excusing it here and saying, well, it's brilliant marketing. As they're taking something that's exact opposite of the church, it's working. Mm-hmm. They purposely have made an icon in opposition to what they are looking at and holding a mirror up. And they're saying, we will show the exact opposite. And I don't mind what they do. I don't care what they believe. I mean, I happen to agree with a lot of their tenets. But I have an issue, as I do with other people who pick extremes for the likes, if you will, or for the hope that they'll get noticed. And somehow that's okay.
To a certain extent, I feel like that being noticed on social media at this point in this day and age is more of a requirement than anything else if you want to be noticed and make it big. But beyond that, I don't have a lot of instances in this show where I feel like I am at risk of offending you with what I say, as I generally speaking feel very free to say and do the things that I feel the need to say and do without deeply hurting you. I'm going to ride that razor's edge now, and I apologize in advance if I do offend. I mentioned, actually, no, before I get into that, I'm going to kill my own. Before I get into that, I want to respond to Murray's comment. They're agnostics and believe in neither Satan nor God. That is correct. That is absolutely correct. As an organization, they function as an a-religious organization, but they want.
They're not agnostics, actually. They're non-theistic. If I read their thing
non-theistic.
Right. Yes.
They want to be treated as a religious organization because they feel that any organization that fits within the framework and does the work of a religious organization has every right to be treated as one. If the church is going to get special treatment for being a religious organization, they feel that they should too. That's a very gross simplification, but yes. But as I was saying about potentially offending you, I mentioned last week when we were talking with Chase at how I like the fact that they used extreme iconography as a coat of paint over their objectively productive and meeting in the middle-esque endeavors. A lot of their political endeavors do involve meeting in the middle. And I like the fact that their position of having that extreme iconography asks people to look past it, to see the root of what they are, to look past the surface and under the surface to see what they're actually doing. And that if someone can do that, they have a better appreciation for the actual group. And at the risk of being offensive, you're kind of proving my point a little bit, is that you're getting so hung up on what's on the surface level that you're discrediting everything else that they're doing. I'd like the fact that that exists like that means that the people that look past it and get involved kind of are able to do that. They're able to do that mental work, to look past the coat of paint, see the good that the organization does and get behind it, or not. But generally speaking, the supporters that they're going to get are people who can look past what's on the surface. And I like the fact that it incentivizes that. And I'm sitting here racking my brain how to explain to you how to get past that coat of paint. Like, I don't agree with the coat of paint per se. I don't think that the satanic iconography does anything good or bad for me. I'm kind of moot on it. I like what the organization does at the end.
So you didn't offend me at all. And actually, your last sentence sort of explains you in a light that I can appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
It does not explain the group. As you looked at it and you said, I don't really, the logo and iconography, it doesn't do much for me. I can look at what they do. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It just, if we're going to hold a mirror up to Trump and say, you're bad, or we're going to look at the left and say, you're bad, not all the people who voted for Trudeau are bad people. We know that. Not everything he has done is bad. We know that. It's looking at the extremes, though, at the people who live and breathe and eat, all the Kool-Aid on either end of the spectrum, who hold the tenets of Trumpism, if you will, as their creed. I agreed a lot with what he said. I agreed with a lot of the stuff that he brought in place, the wall on the southern border. I have no problem with that kind of stuff. But I don't like
That's
Trump.
Problematic in and of itself. But yeah.
Well, that's a point of view. We can talk about the points of view. But the fact is, I like a lot of what he did. I don't like him, and I think he was an idiot, as he was the icon of the Trump party, and I think it was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at the Satanic Temple, it's the extreme view or the extreme frame that I have an issue with. It isn't what they believe. I don't care if they believe in God. History and time will prove them either right or wrong. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. It just, how do you want me to take you seriously when you knowingly are going to frame it in something that I don't like?
I expect you to be able to look past that.
Well, then I expect you to look past the fact that I show up at a rally for Bernie Sanders in
a MAGA hat?
In a MAGA hat and a Trump flag. And you're going to look at me and say, you're in the wrong place.
I'm going to say you're a little out of place, and you're probably risking your chicken or risking your biscuit to be here, but I'm okay with you being there. In the same sense that if I show up to a Trump rally with a pride flag, I expect to be there and to be able to be there.
But the truth of the matter is neither one of us are going to make any converts in that way. Neither one of us are going to make a convert that way.
They're not necessarily looking for converts. They're looking for progress. I mean, converts are nice.
Which takes converts. You have to get people to agree with you.
Yeah, they don't need Christians to agree with them.
But they need people to agree. And when you
they're getting lots of people. They're getting lots of people. They're doing great for themselves.
Okay.
Partially because they are marketing to people who are fed up with Christianity and the special treatment that it gets. They're just pulling from a different pool. They're not pulling from across the aisle. And I think they're okay with that.
Okay. And then they have to be okay with those of us who are in the middle of the road, and I consider myself in the middle of the road, to look at them exactly how I look at others at either extreme. Say, you are losing the people in the middle. And if they're okay with losing the people in the middle,
I imagine they are, at least at
more
on
power
a
to
surface
them.
level like that. On a surface level viewership like that, I would assume they are okay with it. If they even give it a second thought.
Well,
I would hope that people in the middle could see past the coat of paint to see the good that they do. I mean, all this 2 episodes and a little bit, or almost 3 episodes that now that we've been dealing with the Satanic Temple, all it's done for me is increase my admiration of that group, of that organization. The more I dig into them, the more I like them. Apropos of their iconography, the organization itself is only seeking to grow my admiration for them.
well, you're going to lose my admiration as an organization as soon as they go extreme.
And see, maybe it is because I exist outside of the Christian circle to a degree now that I don't view it as extreme. I just view
Well,
it
of
as
course you
artistic
don't.
license.
You're not.
I'm not in the in crowd anymore.
Well,
To a certain extent.
as soon as
To a
you
certain extent. Go ahead.
as soon as you remove yourself out of anything, and you look at 2 viewpoints, if it be Christianity, if it be Satanism, if it be atheism, if it be theism, as soon as you're not in any camp,
Mm-hmm.
you look at the 2 camps, and you look at one on one side, the other on the other side, and you say, I think you both are crazy.
See, I don't.
You do, because you look at what they're doing and you say, you're wrong. And you're extreme in what you believe. Now, if you're in either camp, you have to look at the other side and say, you're wrong. You have to, or you're not in the other camp.
Or you're just moving on a higher plane than the people in your camp.
No,
I think so.
How can you think that? You either believe in Christianity or you do not. There's no room between. There's no room between the Satanic.
Agnostics would beg to differ.
How?
Agnosticism is a position of not knowing, of uncertainty.
But they're not agnostic.
No, they're non-theistic.
Yes. There is no God. There is no Satan. There is
no,
none
that's
of
not
it.
non-theistic. They, as an organization, are non-theistic. That doesn't mean they don't believe in. Yeah, I guess that would qualify as no God. It doesn't mean there is no divine power. Just no God.
Yeah, it's non-theistic. That would be no God.
I have to work through this all with the knowledge that my opinion isn't. I don't sit in the middle between these 2 parties and look at them both and say, wow, those are both crazy. Because I don't really, me personally, I don't factor the iconography in a whole lot. Because you're right, for both sides, for me in the middle, both sides' iconography is a little crazy. Demons with goat heads, etc., is kind of crazy. Dude nailed to a cross is pretty crazy. I look at what they say and what they do. And the fact of the matter is, obviously, comparing Christendom as a whole to the Satanic Temple is not a very fair comparison. Christendom is a very broad, very large topic. But at least conservative, evangelical, or Baptist, or the predominant Christian circles in North America, if I compare them to the Satanic Temple, I look at what they do and I see the Satanic Temple doing generally good things, and I look at the church and I see them doing a lot of awful things, or what I would qualify as awful. And to a certain extent, I have a bias because I kind of hate organized religion because of things that it has done to me in my lifetime. So I obviously have a bend against them, and I try to look past that objectively as much as I can. Um, I don't think I still I can't word this strong enough. I don't think that comparing the Satanic Temple and its extreme iconography to a Trump or a Trudeau is a fair comparison. I think those are wildly inaccurate. Also, to comment on everything that Murray has said, she's got 3 comments now.
Yes.
Yes, in reference to the the Christian monument, they actually pulled their attempts to put a monument up after the Christian one was removed, because yes, they just seek equality in that regard, not necessarily having them.
So I'll answer Doug's, as I think it's fairly. There's an argument on the part of the Satanic, well, of both atheists, that one is historical, is argumentative, as they don't believe that, and so I think historical is a it's a stretch for people who don't believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ.
I was going to say, yeah, from an atheist point of view, they're both mythical.
Yes. So again, it gets hard to make that argument. I agree. As a Christian, I agree. Although I look at Satan, I don't think he's mythical. I think he is a real character in the reality that I believe in, and so I don't look at it as mythical. I look at it as they think it's mythical.
Yeah.
With they being the Satanic Temple.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing has got me, and this is where I came at the beginning of the show when I was writing the description of the show. It has me hot and bothered, and not that anybody, they believe anything. I don't care what people believe. I really don't. It gets me in trouble in right-wing circles, is I don't care if you want to be gay, if you want to do this, if you want to do the other thing, if you want to be trans, if you want to do anything. It's this idea that in order to win a vote or to win an opinion, I have to go further than the next guy in how I present it. Has always bothered me.
I don't think they would have to go that far if Christianity wasn't what it was. I think that they are, again, a mirror. And if Christianity wasn't so extreme, they wouldn't need to be so extreme to stand out or to be noticed.
That's what they say about politics. It's what they say about so many things. It's what they say about society in general. If you talk to anybody who holds extreme views, or don't even hold extreme views, there's an interview the other day, and I forget who it was. It might have been on the Bill Maher show. I can't remember. And they're arguing about all the ideas is for all the pronouns. And their whole argument is we have to go way out there or we won't be recognized in the middle. We have to have all these extra ones. And they were showing a clip of somebody who said, the only reason I do it is it pisses people off. And I know it pisses me off again. And that's why I use the pronouns on you. And we look at those and we say, you're crazy. You don't make sense. And yet in their head, they have to do it as they have to be a mirror to all the straight-laced people who don't want to have all the gender pronouns and the he, she, he, they, whatever they are. And those of us in the middle, we go back and forth. We look at the two extremes and we say, really? You have to do that in order to make your point? You don't have to. You can come to me and say, hey, I'm looking at the tenets.
Well, we'll get to that comment in a minute. There's
when
a
I
lot
look
to
at
unpack.
The tenets, you come to with any one of these and say, yeah, Yeah, and anybody in the middle of the road, you could look at any one of these except for maybe the last one. I have a problem with the last one on a on a practicality. No,
Yeah.
but any one of these, there's nothing wrong with them. I agree very strongly with some of them. And you could come to a middle of the road guy and say, "Hey,
So
we need justice." And none of us are going to look at you and say you're an idiot. But when you cloak yourself in a satanic robe and say, "Hey, we need justice," it removes for the people in the middle. Now, the people on the other end, they're going to look at you and they will ignore you. For the people who agree with you, they don't care. But those are not the majority of people. It's the people in the middle who are the majority.
I maintain my stance that I think that anyone in the middle who can't look past that, I don't know. I have a hard time wrapping my head around how it's not possible to just look past the iconography and see what they do, because that's what I do. I focus more on what the organization does as opposed to just its branding. Like, branding is obviously a factor, but relative to what the organization does, it pales in comparison. But that's not that's not what there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack with a lot of the statements that you made, and this is going to come across as nitpicking, but I feel adamantly that it needs to be said. First off, your comparison between people's belief systems, whether it's Christianity or non-theistic, and people who are gay, trans, etc., people who fall under the LGBTQ plus umbrella, those are two very different things and not an equal comparison, because one is a form of belief, the other is a state of being. Now, gender is a form of social construct. That could be a belief, but a person's sexuality is, generally speaking, something that they have. It is intrinsic to them. A person discovers it, but it is a part of them. It is not something they believe in or don't believe in. It is something that some people fight against or don't, but it is a state of being, not a belief system. Those are two different things, and I feel like that deserves pointing out.
I'll give you that one.
And
I may not agree, but I'll give it to you.
And on that same note, though, people who use other people's appropriate pronouns or preferred pronouns aggressively, I don't agree with the person on Bill Maher, because I believe I've seen that clip, who says that they do it to piss off the right. I think that's a stupid reason to do it. I do it to respect the people who want to be called what they want to be called. It is a baseline of respect for me to use the pronouns that they wish to be called by. I think it is a terrible comparison by the person on Bill Maher, and I don't think it's a good comparison from you. I don't think it's the same. Calling a person by their pronouns, whether you believe in them or not, I think is just minimal amounts of respect towards them as a person. And
so it was actually the other. It was the other person who
doesn't use pronouns to piss them off.
No, they picked their pronouns on purpose so they could make a statement.
Oh,
so they picked it was the weird ones. It was the one.
If they're picking weird pronouns just to make a point, then they're an idiot. And I think
that's what they were doing.
People who legitimately
and the whole point with Bill Maher, and I don't want to say it's Bill Maher because I can't remember the show. It might have been another one. It might have been the libs of TikTok, for crying out loud. I've been loving what they do recently, but it was this idea that I will do something in order to make a statement. But I want to end on one thing on the Satanic Temple, and it isn't a big deal for me, although it's one of the areas that I have a logical problem with, and it's this one. Okay. And you can read it if you want for those on the podcast. It should be on the show, on screen.
Every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word.
How do you make that work in society?
How do you mean? I'm this is my reading of that. I don't know if this is what they intended. My reading of that is that a societal view of what is mercy, compassion, and justice should prevail over biblical or religious texts. That's my reading of it, is that we should take what we as a
Well-
society judge to be justice over what a book says is justice.
Well, I do it on this one too, and this is in that same vein.
I'll read this one out too. The struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions.
So you look at either one of those, although I link them because I don't think it's only the Bible that they have a problem with. It's written laws and written institutions, and I think you're just asking for a mess.
How so?
We have laws and institutions for a reason.
Yeah, and we should, as a society, should feel okay with trying to change them if we feel that they are wrong. Just because they're written doesn't mean they're perfect.
No, I don't think that either. I don't think anybody does. Is every tenet a guiding principle? Is every tenet everybody's tenet? If your tenet is I want to eat pancakes every day, and mine is I don't want to do carbs, and those are extreme examples, so don't hold me to that, but is every tenet, we both
Can you go back
have
to
a
the
good
previous
value.
quote? So I can just read it.
I have to go back. One moment. Let me just step up. It's a lot of work to do this, you realize.
Mm-hmm.
You're making me think here. There you go.
So
Next, I'm going to have to put them. It's not that it's wrong. I just think it's hopelessly optimistic that you can say that that all of our guiding ideas and all of our principles they should inspire nobility and thought and action, and it should be higher than the written word. We have written laws for a reason, and we write things for a reason.
I think you're being overly optimistic of why laws exist. Some laws exist for the good of society. Other laws exist to put down people of certain races. And I feel like this is directly a call to doing the right thing in a safe and legal way.
No. It prevails over laws and institutions. So it's not a legal way.
No, that is reading into it in an extremist fashion.
No, it's not a legal way. It says
compassion, wisdom, and justice. It's not inciting people to go beyond the law. It's inciting them to change the law.
So go to number 2. This struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary. I'm going to put these on the screen. Which will prevail over laws and institutions. And it's not that I think that either one of these are horribly wrong. I do think they are hopelessly optimistic. Looking at it and saying, this struggle for justice is ongoing and it should prevail over laws. If that's the case, then all the white supremacists in northern Idaho are going to say, "You bet." And we look at the white supremacists in northern Idaho. We say, "You guys are idiots. There's laws against what you do," and they think, "But what we're doing is right. It's a struggle for justice." It's dangerous when you say that any viewpoint is above the law.
Not any viewpoint is above the law. There are viewpoints that can... It was a poor choice of words on my part, but there are viewpoints. The law is inherently flawed because the law is written by people.
Yes.
And so it is a constant and never-ending struggle to redefine and adjust those laws to be more fair, compassionate, equitable, and noble.
Yes.
That struggle will never end. That is going to end. That struggle will end when every last human being on the planet is dead and buried.
Yes.
It's never going to stop. But it can't stop. We can't sit back and be like, we're done now, because we're never going to be done.
And this is not extremism. I don't view it that way. I just think it's hopelessly optimistic.
What's the alternative? What's the alternative to being optimistic and trying to change it? What else should we do? I'm not going to sit here and keep it as it is, because as it is grossly unjust. So sitting back and being like, you know what, it's good enough, bullshit. I don't think it's optimistic. I think it's the bare fucking minimum. Ah, damn it, I went over twice. I already said one. Like,
Do you feel strongly about this, Will?
I do feel strongly about it. And this is something that gets under my goat with progressive people too sometimes, is a feeling of hopelessness. And I get that, because I am also incredibly pessimistic. I am brutally pessimistic. But
I think society is pessimistic. I think if you ask Christians right now, they are pessimistic. If you look at people who are right of center, they're horribly pessimistic. There's an endemic, an epidemic, an endemic.
It was
I don't know what the word is I want.
I don't know if it still qualifies legally as an epidemic. It is endemic now.
But everybody is hopeless. It's why suicides are at an all-time high. That's why overdoses are at an all-time high. They don't see hope. There are more people are selling hope right now than anything else. And it's hope in, if it's medicine, hope in religion, hope in lack of religion, hope in everything, as there is this huge issue of everybody is pessimistic about the future. Well, it isn't only progressives, and it isn't only those of us in the middle. It's everybody.
It should be pessimistic, because it's kind of trash right now.
Yes, it is.
So we need to do something to make it better.
Yes. Now,
and we're trying to.
How we get there
Yeah.
is going to be a mix of two views.
Yes, it is.
And that's where this...
Okay, I want to answer Murray's last two comments. I don't think it appeals to people who don't love authority. I think it appeals to people who want to change what the authority has to say, because the authority is not fair. The justice system, especially in the United States, it's not equal. It's nowhere close to equal. And so, yes, they fight against it because they think that it is brutally unjust. I don't think they seem very lawless. I would argue quite the opposite. And then saying that it's not optimistic, it's argumentative. Otherwise, they should come up with their own thoughts and stop fighting against other views. They are coming up with their own thoughts, which happen to involve fighting other people's views. In many cases, specifically conservative Christian views.
We need to wrap this up. It's been an hour and a bit. It's hard for me to acknowledge any validity in an organization which whole existence is to hold a mirror against another one. And I do have an issue with that. Not with the tenets, not the ideas. It's with the methodology. Exactly like what I did with Trump. I voted for Trump, and not because I liked him, except I looked at it as there are areas in it that I agreed with. And so I bit the sour pill, and again, I did it. And I think with this, because I think I know you a little bit, you have to do that as well. Because there's area in it that you look at and you like, and you're saying, I have to swallow a bit of the sour pill.
It's not a sour pill to me. There's a portion of the pill that doesn't affect me one way or the other. There isn't a piece of that that's a sour pill. I
guess is what worries me a little bit. I think it should, as it's extreme.
This conversation is incredibly frustrating to me because, from my point of view, the same is true of your Christianity. I have to sit back every time that I interact with and talk about solutions with people who are conservative, and especially conservative Christians. And I have to bite back and swallow the bitter portion of that pill every single time I interact with them, because I do that in the name of moving forward, because I feel like me swallowing that bitter pill will get me to a better and healthier society, even if those things bother me a lot. And so
It's not that they don't,
so
you have to agree with them.
no, I think that they're actively detrimental on
But
so
the
many
reason
occasions.
for their existence is not in opposition to anything.
It's in opposition to a lot of things.
No,
just
no, no,
not
no,
the
no,
things
no,
that
no.
you support.
No, Will. The reason for its existence, it was here before those things. Its reason for existence was not to come up with a way to fix you or to
Depending
fix
on who you
anybody
talk
else.
to, its reason for existing is to come up with ways to control and oppress large populations. There are so many things wrong with Christianity and conservatism that are bitter pills that I have to swallow to interact with Christian conservative people in a calm, meaningful, and productive way. And it blows
But
my mind that this, on a small, in like a tiny
no,
scale,
no, no, no,
relative.
no, 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 no. You're hearing me
Let me.
wrong.
I'm saying, let me finish my thought though.
Okay, finish your thought.
The fact that I have to swallow these pills that are incredibly bitter to me on a regular basis.
Yes.
But when I sit here and ask you to swallow a very minorly bitter pill, by my assumption, obviously it's more bitter to you, to look past that iconography to see the good behind it is incredibly, incredibly frustrating to me.
I hadn't noticed.
I have a hard time wrapping my head around it.
But you should acknowledge, I think, that the reason for existence of Christianity was not made in opposition to something. It wasn't, Will.
I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you that. We do know why the existence of the Satanic Temple was made. It was
Yes.
in opposition to something.
No, it was made to make a difference, and it happens to be in opposition to something. That, again, that's the branding they chose.
Yeah.
I don't think that anyone came along and said, you know what, let's make an organization just to mess with the church. No, they said,
No.
let's do something about the things that we feel are wrong societally. And it happens to be that a lot of those things are in opposition to what Christian conservatives want.
Okay. Their whole existence
Wrong.
is against
You
something.
are saying their whole existence.
Their whole
They happen
existence
to
is to
be-
say, we think this is wrong, and so we're going to pick the extreme example. Anyway, I'm not gonna beat this dead. This horse is
That horse
dead.
is thoroughly beat.
Yes. And yes, Murray, as I said, argumentative, you're right.
You're right. I do want to. I don't have a lot left to say, as I'm kind of flustered, but I do feel the need to touch on the one comment from Marie. And Marie, I love you to pieces, so please don't take this harshly. When you say life isn't fair, you're right. It isn't, but that doesn't mean we can't try to be better. And that's yeah. I hate that statement. Life isn't fair.
Why?
It's like it's a pick yourself up by your bootstraps or just deal with it kind of way of thinking. And we are dealing with it by
You just muted yourself, Will. You just muted yourself, so I lost half what you said.
I can't sit back and be okay with the way things are because it isn't fair. We can be closer to fair. We can do better. And I feel that it is an obligation to try.
Yes. I don't think that Murray is saying you can't.
I know. I'm just saying that
struggle
sentence in a bubble bugs me.
Well, it shouldn't, because I do think that life is not fair. I think that's a fair statement. It's not fair. It's what you do with it, and you're exactly right, is we have to work to make it more fair. And I don't mind doing that. I think that's why this show exists. Is to have a conversation and look for common ground and look for things that will make it a little more palatable.
Yeah. Murray's most recent comment, no matter what we do, it'll never be fair. You're right. Life will never be fair, but we can strive to be more fair. We as people can be more fair. And currently a lot of the systems that are grossly unfair are devised by people. So that means they can be taken down and life can come closer to being fair. You're right, it'll never be there, but it's so far out of whack right now that it's unacceptable.
On that note, I got you all hot and flustered. That's okay. I don't feel bad.
I'm in a tiny little box with a heater. So
I've been
I'm
flustered
to begin with.
I've been flustered all week. So
Yeah.
why is there heater in your office?
My computer is a heater, effectively, and I don't have any ventilation in here till the show's done, and I can open the door and turn a fan on.
Gotcha.
Motivates me to keep the show short.
Yeah, that's right. Keep the show short.
Lighting a fire under me.
Yes. Well, if you do us a favor after listening to us argue for an hour and a half, would you like, comment, and share, subscribe?
Like, comment, subscribe to hear us bicker some more.
That's right.
No. As frustrating as these conversations can be, I think they're good conversations to have.
They're hard conversations, and
Yeah.
and there always are going to be areas in life where you and I will vehemently disagree.
Mm-hmm.
They're always, at the end of the day, it's Father's Day, and you still have to like me, you poor sorry son of a bitch.
No, I have to love you.
You have to love me. It's Father's Day. It sucks to be William today.
It just so happens that I do both of those things.
Oh, man.
But I do want to say thank you specifically to Murray for both watching the show, but also being part of the conversation. And anyone else who sees this or hears this show, please feel empowered to become part of the conversation. We love interacting with people commenting on the show.
Yes.
We're terrible at getting back to you if you comment on the video after the show. We're terrible at getting back to you about that. But if you're around while we're shooting live, please feel empowered to get in there and be part of it.
We peaked at 5 viewers today. Who the heck was watching the show today?
People.
Holy cow. That's more we've had in a while. I don't know what we did. Maybe Chase, and now he's all mad at me.
I think he's at work, actually, but yeah.
There you go. Okay, well, I'm going to